Hey guys, Zom Fox here, and today it is time for the Week 7 game picks for the 2025 UFL season. We are finally nearing the end of the regular season, and we know that because, well, we have playoff clinching scenarios. If you saw my community post that came out yesterday, both the Showboats and Brahmas are able to be eliminated from the playoffs this week, meaning we are truly nearing the end of the season. Now, last week had a couple of big upsets and a couple of big blowouts. As for this week, we'll see how it goes, but let's get right into it with the first pair of games being the Defenders Brahmas Friday Night Football game, which I will be streaming at 7:45, doing a live play-by-play. And then the Panthers Renegades on Saturday, the only Saturday game. That one's at 1 p.m. EST. DC San Antonio. Man, this is a tough one. Look, DC, despite what people try to say, have been looking worse every single week of the season. See, there's a trend going on through 6 weeks. They have continuously allowed more points in every single game. Now, yes, one of those games you have the punt return touchdown, but overall they've been allowing more points in every single game. Do I think that continues? No. Because if they allow 40-plus points to this Brahmas team, you might as well just throw in the towel and admit you're not making the playoffs if you're DC. Let's be serious, okay? So, I expect that trend to be broken. But it still does beg the question of if this DC defense is even good anymore. Yes, the first couple weeks it looked good, but number one, you had the Alex Magoo game where you sacked him 8 times and inflated all your stats. And then since then, it's just kind of gotten worse and worse. Your ground game looked better last week, but it still looks like one of the worst in the league. Teamu is still the most inconsistent quarterback in the league. At the end of the day, though, you should beat the Brahmas. I think they beat him 27-20. Look, San Antonio covers this. 9.5 is insane. Now, yes, last week I thought my pick had it closer, but the fact is, yes, last week they got destroyed by the Stallions, and the week before that they got destroyed by the Roughnecks in the Tank Bowl. No way it happens again. I just don't see them putting up 3 points again. If they do, this is one of the most inept offenses in spring football history. Look, yeah, you're 2 weeks with the new party offense, but I assume back at home, you don't want to disappoint in front of your home crowd again like you did a couple weeks ago. You're going to do better. You're still going to lose. The fact is DC is just a better team than you. DC knows they cannot get swept by San Antonio because those 2 losses are going to affect their conference record standings. You lose a game to Arlington or St. Louis at a bad time, and then you're screwed. So they need to get this W. So I do think it hits the over. I think that 37.5 it's too low when you consider how weak both defenses are. Because at this point in the season, we're talking about arguably the 2 weakest defenses. Not 2 of, the 2. Because how poor Memphis is, at least their stats are without getting turnovers. DC's are pretty poor, and that's despite getting turnovers. The fact is the Brahmas have the worst defense in the league, and the Defenders are quickly becoming that. When you allow back-to-back 30-plus point games, that's bad. But I think they, do a bit better. Again, allowing 20 points to San Antonio might be worse than allowing 38 to the Panthers, but I think they end up pulling this off, winning 27-20, getting back in the win column. Michigan-Arlington, man. This is a tough one to call, because on one hand, you can't expect Arlington to choke another game, but at the same token, that's what they've been doing for a year and a half now. Especially in the UFL era. I know they had issues in the XFL 2023, but in this UFL era, it's been the same problems. They'll go to the end of the game scenario, it'll be a 3 to a 5-point game, and they'll just find a way to lose it every single time. So it's hard for me to look at this team and say, yeah, they're going to get this W against Michigan. At the same time, it's hard for me to look at this team and say they're going to lose 2 straight. It's a 3-point spread, 42.5 over-under. I might regret it because, the PFN curse, the number 1 team in their power rankings always lose, and I truly wouldn't be shocked if both the Battlehawks and Panthers lose this week, but I'm going to go with the Panthers winning this. They're just the better team. Bryce Perkins is the best quarterback in the league. The Panthers' ground game has been getting better and better pretty much every week. Once you added both Tawa as well as Perkins running the ball, this ground game went from being a pretty disappointing one to the best in the league. So, when you have that going against this Renegades team, again, the Renegades stats, they dominated St. Louis twice in terms of a statistical standpoint, especially in the sack total. Aside from that, they haven't been the most insane. Yes, Ajeen Harris has had his great moments this season, but there's a reason why he's, quickly losing steam in that MVP conversation and even DPOY to an extent. So, I think that, yes, while I wouldn't be shocked if Arlington wins just because that's kind of the trend this season's been going, the fact is Michigan should win. They are a better team. They have the better quarterback. They have the better coach because how many issues we have with Nolan, at least it was pretty much all just the Danny Etling situation, and I guess the Marcus Sims trade. Whereas Stoops, I mean, this is a 1.5 year long problem if they can't close games, and that pretty much falls on him. Again, I would not be shocked if Arlington pulls off the upset, but I'm going to go with Michigan beating Arlington, winning this one by 2 points in Arlington. Now, the Sunday games. We have the Roughneck Stallions and the Battlehawks Showboats. This is a tough one, the Roughneck Stallions, because the Roughnecks are very much what the Panthers were about a week and a half ago, right before they played DC. They're a team that all their wins are against non-impressive teams. It's not like they're dominating those teams, but, they're 3-0, but it's against the Showboats and Brahmas, they're 3-0. That's what people said about the Panthers. Then the Panthers went and demolished DC. Do I think that they demolished Birmingham? No. Look, it's a 5.5 point spread, and it's 38.5 over/under. When I look at this game, I look at it from the perspective of the Stallions. This quarterback group just keeps getting banged up. You've had everybody on the injury report and everything. It just gets worse and worse. They had to sign another quarterback. It's just, this team's quarterback position is just getting banged up. So either you're going to be playing your third and fourth stringer banged up, or you're going to be playing essentially your fifth or sixth stringer. Whereas Houston, they got Kirk Merritt back. He's been looking good. I think Houston pulls it off and wins 25-22. I think they win. I think it's an over. Look, they almost beat them last time, and that was a worse Roughnecks team than they are now, and that was a better Stallions team than the Stallions are now. I think the Stallions break their franchise record for most losses in a season this week. I know that, the UFL can trial, they want to act like it's the Roughnecks. This is the Gamblers. This Gamblers team historically pulled off one random upset every year over Birmingham. They didn't last year, but I think they go back to it this year. They go back to splitting the series against Birmingham. Why? McClendon's been a very efficient passer. One of his interceptions especially was a total freak interception. He's been and even with them, he's been a very, very solid, efficient quarterback. He's been what this team needed. Again, you add Kirk Merritt to the mix. You add Marcus Sims, presumably going to be back for this game. If not, you still have Justin Hall, who's still one of the best receivers in the league. This team is just a good team. I think that a lot of people are acting like because their wins were against unimpressive teams, they're not a good team, but that's what Michigan was. The difference is people are also forgetting that Memphis is a much better team than they were last year. San Antonio, right? Birmingham blew out San Antonio. You know who did it before them? Houston did. So if you're using San Antonio as the measuring stick, Houston did it first. So I think they pull off this upset. I know it's in Birmingham, so it'll be a tough one to pull off, but I think they get it done. I think Houston wins this. Now, St. Louis, Memphis. I'd love to pick Memphis here just to give them some hope. But, look, technically speaking, I don't have them, being eliminated from the playoffs this week, obviously. I don't have, the Brahmas being eliminated from the playoffs this week. Well, actually, I technically do have the Brahmas being eliminated from the playoffs because I have St. Louis winning. So, yeah, I have the Brahmas being eliminated from the playoffs. I have, obviously them losing. And then I have St. Louis winning, which then eliminates San Antonio. Because both those teams, right, if the 2 4-2 teams win and then they lose, they're out. I think St. Louis wins this one. I think they win it 30-22. I think they do cover the spread. I think they do hit the over. This Showboats offense is going to put up a decent amount of points. This Battlehawks offense with Max Duggan is such a weird unit because they're really not great, but they're not bad at all. They're just inconsistent in a lot of ways. What it comes down to, in all honesty, is that I think that this Battlehawks offense looks better than it did last week against Arlington. I feel like Arlington just kind of has their number. Memphis is just not a team that gets turnovers, and that's something that this Showboats or this Battlehawks team with Duggan has been a bit questionable at, is against the Renegades. They've had turnover problems against them, right? I don't think they're going to really do it against this team. And I think that the offense is going to look better. Jacob Saylor's going to have his best game in a while. You're still having, the resurgence of the receiving core thanks to Akeem Butler being back. I know they released Denzel Mims, but that was a signing that just did not work out for him. Further proving that just because you were an NFL player doesn't mean you're going to be good in spring football. But I just don't see Memphis winning this. It would be great to see Memphis win. It's in Memphis. It would be great for that crowd. It's just hard to look at the St. Louis team and see that they're going to lose this one. Because if you're St. Louis, you're looking at this schedule thinking there's a real shot Arlington loses to Michigan and then we win again. We have a significant edge over Arlington in the standings with the last 3 weeks of the season. Because if you win this and they lose, you're fully 2 games ahead of them. And there's no way for them to get a one-up on you because you already played both your head-to-head matchups. So now you just know that you just have to do, not even slightly, just do a decent amount better than them, or just barely better than them, and you'll make the playoffs over them. So St. Louis, this game is more important to them because let's face it. Yes, Memphis and San Antonio can technically be eliminated this week. They essentially got eliminated last week, right? Last week was their last shot to really get back into it. The odds of either of them making the playoffs are just astronomically low. So, St. Louis, they're going to get this W. They win 30-22, or 30-22. As for my overall record, I didn't realize this. For some reason, I thought, even though I had the picture, I thought that I had Birmingham, San Antonio as a closer score. I actually got that one perfect. I was 3 of 3 in that game, so add a 4th perfect game betting prediction to this week. Spread, we're somehow back to even. We went like 3-1 this week. The DC game, I went 0-3. I went 2-3 in the other 2, and then 3-3 in the other one. So overall, really solid week. I finally went back to being positive in that aspect. Over-under is still technically under, obviously, with the push and all that. When on the season, we're back to being a bit positive. Again, it's not insane. The money line, though, like, I've seen so many people with their who do the basic game picks who are, like, barely scratching it slightly above even record because how many upsets there's been. So, not super shocked to see that, in all honesty. But when you look at the spread, I'm really shocked at that. Usually that's the thing I really get wrong, but some of these games, I've just been calling it right, and without even realizing I called it right, like the Stallions-Brahms game. Again, I'm not betting on these are my game predictions, just combined with the betting picks, but overall record, it's looking better. Will we continue this week? I hope so, but with how the season's gone, I doubt it. We'll see. Overall, this has been Zom Fox. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified as I upload any videos. Again, we're getting closer and closer to the end of the season. I'm trying to hit at least 1,250 subscribers by the end of the season. At least 1,200 because, again, we are getting pretty close to the end of the season. Remember, I will be streaming the Friday Night Football game tonight, as well as the Sunday game between the Roughnecks and the Stallions. So be on the lookout for those. And as always, guys, have a great night.